I have some questions for you, but I think maybe to start off, you could just update us on where we are right now. Obviously, things are moving quickly. Thursday, the U.S. bombed parts of Iran again. Iran responded, which of course, CENTCOM presented as unprovoked. The response from Iran, which is of course part of the formula. So what is your view of the situation from Iran, and what are the consequences going to be, in your opinion, and what's the atmosphere like there right now?
Yes, the people at CENTCOM apparently don't have a very good memory. They don't recall that they struck 2 tankers and the Iranians retaliated. And last night there was a major firefight. The Iranians did strike American ships, but they struck them with drones. They didn't want to sink them, but they wanted to frighten them and to cause some limited damage.
Can you just clarify? Because I'm not a military analyst. So when you say they struck them with drones, as opposed to
like trying to sink them with missiles, or to hit them with large numbers of drones and cause severe damage.
Right.
So they wanted to create fear, but also to do some damage. And apparently the American ships were damaged. The Americans today have shot at 2 Iranian tankers going towards Iran, and badly damaged them apparently. And the Iranians, from my understanding, have also struck the Emirates today. Or at least that's what I hear. I hear that there have been explosions there. So there is no ceasefire. And the reason is that after the 39-day war, there was supposed to be a ceasefire because Trump, at the end of the war, accepted Iran's 10-point plan as the framework for discussions. At the beginning of the war, he wanted unconditional surrender, and then ultimately things weren't going well, so he had to accept Iran's 10-point plan. And but as usual, he hasn't shown good faith, and there was a ceasefire agreement that was agreed upon before the discussions on peace and the 10-point plan. But Netanyahu, you recall, began carpet bombing cities in Lebanon. He killed hundreds of people within minutes, and he even bombed neighborhoods that weren't even close to the resistance. But he just wanted to, through slaughtering ordinary people, he wanted to wreck the ceasefire between Iran and the United States. And Trump, instead of putting pressure on him, he said, well, Lebanon is, he echoed what Netanyahu was saying and said that Lebanon was not a part of the ceasefire, when in fact it was, and the Pakistani mediators said that it was. So because of that, the ceasefire deal was not implemented. If you recall, Iran was supposed to allow ships from the 5 countries that assisted the United States in the war, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, to allow them to go through the strait. Because the Iranians never closed the Strait of Hormuz. They only closed it to ships that are linked to those countries that were hostile towards Iran. But in the ceasefire agreement,
you never know that from the media. I'm sorry. I mean, you never know that from the media or a politician, where it's closed. But I'm sorry.
Exactly. Otherwise, like Chinese ships or Russian ships or ships linked to countries that have not had hostility towards Iran, they've been passing through Pakistan, India, and so on. So, so Netanyahu blocked the ceasefire, and so Iran continued to prevent those ships from going through. And then when Netanyahu was forced to accept the ceasefire after 10 days, of course, subsequently he began slaughtering Lebanese civilians again and citizens again, and he continues to do so both in Lebanon and in Gaza every day. But when he did accept the ceasefire briefly, Iran said it will allow those ships to go through, and then Trump who had just a couple of days earlier imposed a siege on Iranian ports, refused to lift that siege. And that siege is a violation of the ceasefire agreement, and it's also an act of war. So because of that, the Iranians continue to refrain from allowing these ships to pass through. So for weeks now, since the fighting has stopped, we have not seen these ships go through, and the global economic situation is becoming increasingly dangerous.
Right.
But yesterday, the United States began during the last 2-3 days, the United States began an assault where they say they're going to Project Freedom, I think, where they're going to force ships to force Iran to let the ships from those 5 countries through the strait. And that failed. And again, last night they carried out an assault on 2 tankers, and then there was firefighting between Iran and U.S. Navy, and again that ended. And right now, as you and I are speaking, there are clashes going on in the near the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and the United States.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that update. And it's pretty infuriating because all this death and destruction could, of course, be avoided. But we have as you call it, the Epstein class, which is controlling the foreign policy. This is another discussion. But when I say the Epstein class, I don't just mean Israel, and I don't just mean Jewish Zionists, because there is, as we've discussed, there's obviously a huge Christian Zionist lobby as well, and we see that. People who are members of the administration. Luckily, it's a very diverse coalition. So you have like the Witkoffs and the Kushners, but then of course you have the Huckabees and the Hegseths. But also you do have.
Don't worry. I mean, there's equal opportunity. If you've seen some of the Epstein files, and so have I. There are people in these regimes in the Persian Gulf, especially in the Emirates. And
Dr. Marandi froze right when he was talking about Epstein.
But they too are in the Epstein files. So it's in these Arab regimes that assisted the United States against Iran.
Oh,
they
right.
are very much alive and well.
Yes, right. It's a holy trinity of participation of Zionism. Yeah. Also, there's of course the arms industry in the United States. So all these lobbying forces and forces that are making that comprise the policy that does not reflect the interests of the American people. And something that, you distinguish between, and I was in Cuba and I hear this all the time, the people in these countries who are living under the sanctions and warfare of the United States do distinguish between the American people and the government, which is something that the West could be better about. I mean, the Western media and Western politicians are terrible about it, but, again, because of the vilification, I think that people just kind of have such a monolithic view of people, the Iranians, the Cubans, the Venezuelans. So, again, it's just really grateful for your voice. And I guess I keep saying that because I am, but also because I feel so bad that you are so that you need to be doing these many appearances. But again, grateful. I just wish for your health and well-being. You didn't have to. And by the way, sorry to even say this, but we are not even at half the number of likes. And I know not half of you are hate watching. So please do hit the like. I know that you are happy to be here. I just haven't trained you enough. We are at over 2,000 viewers, which is great, but we got to guys, we're at 2,361 viewers, and we're not even at 1,000. So you better, by the time that Professor Marandi responds to the next question, you really got to do it. All right. So I actually wanted to play a video of Donald Trump. Sorry about that, everyone. But I did want to play a video of Donald Trump. And then I also wanted to show your response to said video. So let me just open this up.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. and Brad could not join today. So, I mean, he may join later. Not his fault. Extremely hardworking, dedicated, Brad. But because of that, I'll be controlling it. So sorry for the delays. Okay. But also thrilled that now Dr. Marandi is able to use the app that we use, and so you can actually see me and see the clips we're playing. Okay. So here is Trump being. This is from. 1 second. Here is Trump making some really interesting comments Thursday evening at like a brief press conference, and he's asked about whether or not the ceasefire is still in place. So, okay, we're going to play that right now.
President, after these strikes, is the ceasefire with Iran still on?
Yeah, it is. They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran. And they better sign their agreement fast.
Yes. Could you give us an update on what is the latest in those talks?
No, the talks are going very well, but they have to understand if it doesn't get signed, they're going to have a lot of pain. They're going to have a lot of pain. They want to sign it. I will tell you. They want to sign it a lot more than I do.
What was the president after?
Okay, so in addition to that commentary, which is interesting, I guess he thinks that he learned a new word, even though he hasn't necessarily. I don't think he understands what trifling means. You said Trump was badly defeated last night. So please respond to that video and also elaborate on your tweet about it.
Well, in the operation that, in general, the operation that they've been carrying out over the last 3 days, they haven't succeeded in getting through any one of those tankers or ships that they were saying they're going to get through the strait. Initially, they spoke about 2 tankers, but they've never shown any evidence of 2 ships getting through, but they haven't provided any evidence of any ships going through. And so, despite all the firefights and the fighting in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf and in the Gulf of Oman, he's failed at all levels. And also, his ships, the naval ships, were struck by Iranian drones, causing damage, but just enough damage to tell them that they can strike their ships. So, and I think that this response of his sort of reflects the fact that he's not terribly happy about the situation. And again, making these threats of, or what was it, an orange glow across Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could, yeah. But you know what, we've been hearing him say that for many months now, that Iran is begging to have a deal, that Iran's leaders are all dead, there's no one to talk to, but they're desperate to have a deal. I'm not desperate. I mean, it's like a broken record. But what I do find disturbing is that, ever since Trump has been using these genocidal language, and this orange glow is, makes you think about what his intent, what he actually meant. It makes you wonder. But when he spoke about obliterating Iran, and then sending Iran back to the Stone Age, or wiping Iran off the map, or more recently, it said something else. I don't remember what it was, but something more or less the same. Talking about exterminating the Iranian people, as they've been doing in Gaza and in Lebanon, the Israeli regime. But you don't see any pushback from the Western media. You don't see headlines in the Guardian or even those who are supposedly critical of Trump himself, in outrage, threatening a Holocaust, threatening the greatest Holocaust of all time or in human history. Nothing like that. And those journalists, many of them have millions of followers, the major names, or at least tens of thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers. None of them are outraged. None of them are, screaming that, he's threatening to carry out the greatest crime against humanity in human history. And that indifference, I think, again goes back to the fact that these are all employees of that Epstein class that you were alluding to. That these people, just like in Lebanon, I know you have some of our mutual friends are Lebanese, and you've had them on your show. They're slaughtering people in Lebanon. They're targeting medics. They're targeting hospitals. They're targeting ambulances. But Western media is indifferent. They try to distract attention away from Lebanon. And if you, when I say if you recall, I know you recall, but in Gaza, their excuse was that, well, we don't have a presence there, and we can't verify. In Lebanon, Western media has more presence. They have more presence in Beirut than they have in any Arab country, out in West Asia or North Africa.
Right.
They have a full presence, and they know exactly what's happening because these journalists, many of them have fixers, they have drivers, they have producers, and it's not a big country. So they know that there's carpet bombing. They know that they're targeting ordinary people, but they use phrases like Hezbollah strongholds or Hezbollah targets in order to legitimize or justify the slaughter of civilians. So it doesn't matter if Western media is present as in Lebanon or absent as in Gaza, because they'll still do the bidding of their Zionist overlords. That is the reality that we're living in. And so I think the important thing is that for ordinary people in the West really to discontinue using Western media and just go and seek their information from reliable alternative media sources. Not all alternative media. A lot of the alternative media is owned by these very same people. But that's one reason. That's the main reason, if not the only reason, probably the only reason why I usually don't accept going on mainstream media anymore, unless it's live. If it's live, if I have the time, but if it's not live, I don't go. But even if it's live, I'll pick and choose. If I have something, if I have your show and I have to choose one, I definitely say no, I can't go on mainstream media. I'll go on your show because I prefer going on alternative media, because I think all of us have a responsibility to strengthen alternative media and to weaken legacy media.
Right. Yeah. And this is such an important, thank you for that endorsement. The Katie Halper Show, better than Piers Morgan.
No doubt. Yeah. Please, everyone, like the show.
Thank you. Yes, I got Dr. Marandi on board with the social media project. It's really important point that you make, which is, and I haven't actually heard this made elsewhere, which is that, with Gaza, you have I don't want to say the excuse, but you can even pretend or try to make the excuse of, we're not let in, we, the media, are not let in. So perhaps that's why there's not the kind of firsthand witnessing that would cause the justified and required outrage in response to what's happening. Or they can say, we can't really report on it because we don't know, we're not on the ground. But as you say, in the case of Lebanon, there is not that excuse. There is not that possibility of explanation. And so you have this kind of controlled experiment where that just the media, Western media, is not outraged and is not up in arms and is not doing anything to stop an active genocide, active warfare, active campaign of crimes against humanity. So it is, and I can tell. I mean, I've seen you. You're a very calm, collected person, and I can tell the difference, though. And this is not a criticism, but it's if I can say so, I can see the effect of this on you over time, and it seems like you're increasingly incredulous about the media. And I that's totally understandable, because as time goes on, watching them do this more and more, watching them ignore genocide and active genocide, watching them ignore or misrepresent Iran's response as unprovoked. I mean, it's infuriating for me, and I'm not there.
You know, over the last few weeks, 2 reporters in Beirut from like mainstream media, Western media, contacted me. It's not a soundbite, I guess, because the exchanges were typed. They were like on, they were typed exchanges. I don't know, for article, whatever.
Right.
And I told both of them separately that you use Hezbollah stronghold and Hezbollah targets in your articles, and that's immoral. And both of them, and I actually didn't. I wasn't reading their articles, but I was wondering. I wanted to see what their response would be. And both of them said, no, we don't put these things in our. Both of them said the same thing, literally, that the editor does this.
Right.
And I responded to. So that's how I found out that my guess was correct. And then I said, well, that doesn't justify what you do, and it's in your name. So you are complicit in war crimes, and you are assisting in crimes against humanity, because you are misleading your readership. Even if it's not you that's doing it, it's your editor, and you won't stand up and protest because of your paycheck or whatever, because of your reputation as a journalist, so that tomorrow you can get another job at some other media outlet. And that's the reality, that I think they try to deflect, but there's no excuse. They're all complicit in. I may have said this to you. I've said this on a. I've said this on a couple of shows, but this was when Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was martyred. I was in Beirut, and there was a tour of Dahia in downtown Beirut, where the Israelis were bombing apartment blocks and destroying thousands of homes. And I went and participated in that. And the head of Hezbollah media was in charge, and they murdered him a couple of days later. I knew him, but from a bit, but they murdered him later. In that, while we were going around Dahia, one of the journalists from mainstream media, from legacy media, came up to me and started complimenting me, and then he or she said that I am not like the others. You've probably seen this person, so I'll just put it like this. I have seen that. I've known that person I've seen him or her. Right. I've ruined it halfway. It's him, yeah. So I keep. It's a good thing I don't know any secrets. So so he kept saying I'm different from the others, and that just shows that even within legacy media, there's this understanding, I believe, that that there's something deeply, deeply wrong. So he wants to tell me that, look, I'm disgusted. What he was basically saying is I'm disgusted with all that,
right, and
don't think that I'm like the others.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe he does his own resistance or whatever, but in any case, those journalists who just say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, and I have to, if it's not me, it'll be someone else. These are not valid excuses.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of that guy from Brooklyn who moved to.
That's right.
Right, is Jacob, I think, and a woman is complaining that he's literally occupying her home, and he's like, "Well, if it wasn't me, it would be someone else," which is true, but that doesn't make it right. I mean, think about how many things you could say that about. You don't have to be participating or one of those people. I wanted to ask you. There's some interesting things happening let's see. So this week, the Democrats were busy writing letters, and this does include a letter signed by 30 Democrats led by Congressman Joaquin Castro of Texas, demanding to know more about Israel's nuclear program. There was also a letter from 12 Senate Democrats to the U.S. Central Command of War asking to know more about the U.S.'s coordination with Israel's evacuation zones in Lebanon and Iran and its legal implications. So what are your thoughts about these efforts?
Well, I should be asking you because I know that you follow U.S. politics closely and you know these things much better than I. So I'll refrain from saying too much. What I can say is that although I don't have any confidence at all in the Senate or the House or the political establishment in the United States, but it is, I think, to a degree reflective of something much bigger that's happening across the world and in the United States. And that is young people and increasingly older people are turning against Zionism and against the Israeli regime. And the more the Zionist regime carries out these atrocities in Lebanon and Gaza and continues with the genocide, the more entrenched those views become. And they become permanent, especially with the vicious, the way in which they've done this so openly. Right. So the mood has changed. And, there have been a number of Indian journalists in Tehran recently, and I met with them separately by coincidence, I guess. Not all of them came together, but it happened that they were all here last week. And in my different conversations with these journalists, they've been saying that India initially, the majority supported the Israeli regime. And of course, Modi, the prime minister, he just recently went to Israel and gave Netanyahu his full support, despite the genocide and the ongoing genocide. But all of these journalists, all of those who I spoke with about this topic, every single one was saying that the mood in India has changed. Mm-hmm. And the dislike towards both the Israeli regime and Trump has increased a lot. Right. And it's my understanding from what they were saying is that the majority now think very differently. And so if the Israeli regime has lost India, in relative terms, then I think it's clear where they stand across the world. So the changes that are taking place in the United States are reflected slightly, I guess, in Congress. But I think that still this, unless people bring about real change from within broader civil society, that there's no hope. Right. Or real change. But of course, and I have no opinion on the mayor of New York at all. I don't know him. I don't follow anything that he does. But the fact that so many young Jews voted for him, right? And I think indicates that there is hope for change at some point. And also, I saw a Jewish, I didn't write down his name foolishly, but a Jewish academic from Harvard, and he was talking about anti-Semitism, and he was saying how that it was clear that he did not accept the Zionist position. Right. And he was saying, if I recall correctly, that like the age group of 18 to 29 or something like that, or 17 to 28 or something like that, of young Jews in the United States, the majority of them, if I may be wrong, but now consider themselves to be anti-Zionists. So how can that be anti-Semitic? Now I may be wrong with the numbers. I recall watching him. I was just watching YouTube, and then I saw this short clip, and then I moved on, and then later on I said, I wish I'd focused on that or kept that. But in any case, I think it's in general, maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but the mood is changing across the United States. And I think that's very important, because without the United States, this Israeli regime is nothing.
Right.
Their ability to kill is only because of handouts that they get from the West, especially the United States. Their ability to have high-tech industries is only because the United States plants them there. It's not because of anything else. I mean, if the United States and the Europeans, but the United States in particular, pulled the plug, if they just said, okay, we're not going to give you any more aid, direct or indirect, it wouldn't last more than a few months at most.
Right.
In some respects, it wouldn't last more than a couple of weeks. So I think that is big. That is huge. And it just shows that, just like you were saying, the Epstein class is not Jewish. It's Christian, or supposedly
Right.
Christian.
It's multi-religious. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's not. It's actually. And I added Muslim, but it's not Muslim. It's not Jewish, and it's not Christian. Right. It's anti any religion.
Right.
So, but you know what I mean, and your audience knows. So the point is that they're not in good shape, and the world is changing. And I think that the more they kill, and although it disturbs me every day to wake up in the morning and see new images from Lebanon and Gaza. But the more they kill, I think the more they're pushing the regime towards demise.
Right.
Towards its demise.
Yes. Yes. Inshallah, that does happen. Sure. And of course, remember that despite what people say, that does not mean killing all the people who live there. You don't say that. I'm saying. I'm just. Of course, I know. I mean, again, this is for people in
like South Africa.
Exactly, right. Africa. Exactly. Like South Africa, a regime falls, and that is what people are demanding. Equal rights. Imagine that for people, regardless of their religious or ethnic background. So I actually wanted to show you something, though, given the way that Iran is always accused of working on a nuclear weapon, and given the way that we actually know more or less, and different Israeli politicians and journalists have admitted this, that the place that has a nuclear weapon is Israel. I want to show you a clip of Van Jones, who's basically become a spokesperson for the Trump regime. I mean, it's incredible. This is someone who used to present himself as progressive. I want to show you his response to Abby Phillips, who's on CNN, and she is presenting the demand for more transparency when it comes to nuclear weapons. So let's take a look at this. Okay. And this, it refers to the Joaquin Castro letter that I asked about earlier. Okay.
So here are some of the questions that Joaquin Castro is posing on this issue. Maybe this might answer some of your questions. What nuclear weapons capability does Israel have? Has the administration received any assurances from Israel that nuclear weapons will not be used? Has Israel communicated to the United States any nuclear doctrine, any red lines or thresholds for nuclear use in the context of the current conflict with Iran? Has the administration assessed what circumstances could lead Israel to consider nuclear use? What contingency planning has the administration conducted for such a scenario? I mean, we do. Is there? I'm asking an honest question. Why? I mean, has there been some rumor that says that Israel is going to nuke Iran? Here's the thing. I guess the question is again, now there's been a change of status quo. Mm-hmm. There's a war between the United States, Israel, and Iran that is going on right now in the Middle East. And under those circumstances, that is actually different from what we've been experiencing for the last, 40, 50 years. And so under those circumstances, there's only one power in the Middle East that has a nuke, and it's Israel. And so the question is, what are the circumstances? What are the boundaries? Are there any boundaries? They don't acknowledge that they have them. People know that they do, but are there any boundaries? I think that seems like a fair question to ask.
I'm assuming that they're in executive session.
Why? Okay, so I just thought that was kind of a stunning clip. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first, I mean, I can't say for certain. In his case, I'm pretty certain. But when someone says, this is like an honest question, it usually means it's not very, it's not a very honest question.
Right,
But-
exactly. Right. When Van Jones is like, this is an honest question. I'm not being rhetorical. Or yeah, exactly. Why do you
Yeah.
even have to have that disclaimer? That's an honest question, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess I think that's probably correct. The fact is that when Trump can say that he's going to exterminate the Iranian people, that there will be exterminate is my term.
Right.
When he says about an orange
Wipe out a civilization.
glow,
He says that.
wipe out a civilization, take them back to the Stone Age, or obliterate the country, then I think and when there's no reaction in the West, in Western media, and people like himself who would never protest or be outraged by this sort of language, because even if it's not true, right? Even if he's not serious, and we don't know because he's not completely sane and he's a psychopath. But let's say someone said, some like Al Qaeda leader. Of course, Al Qaeda is a tool of the West, and my views on 9/11 have evolved, and I think that they were a controlled group that carried out an operation for reasons that later became clear when Wesley Clark said 7 countries in 5 years. I think that's where we should be looking when we are thinking about 9/11. I didn't think of it this way for 10 years, more than 10 years. But yeah, for at least 10 years, I thought it was more than 10 years, or maybe almost 20 years. That 9/11 was just these crazy Wahhabis that the West created, and they lost control of them, and this happened. But let's say that some crazed person or organization said that we've planted a bomb in New York, a nuclear weapon somewhere, and we're going to blow it up. Even if it's a lie, right? People, at least a segment of New York society, families, mothers, kids, they're going to be terrified. Even if they're not terrified enough to leave New York, or they have nowhere to go, but they're thinking about what if something happens. That's terrorism. That's what terrorism is. Just like the Israelis, when they bomb from the air, that's just as much terrorism as when someone explodes a bomb in some street corner. This is another form of terrorism where people live in fear. And so for them, it seems like why should the Israeli regime, give us that sort of information? Why? Because they want the Israeli regime to have to be capable of doing whatever it needs to do. And that is as it is carrying out genocide. So I'm not saying that these people are saying that the Israeli regime should use a nuclear weapon. What I'm saying is that they're saying that they should have maximum leeway to do what it is that they're doing. And that is basically slaughtering kids, slaughtering families every day in Lebanon and Gaza. And, during the 2 wars that they and the United States imposed on Iran, and of course in Syria when they supported ISIS and Al Qaeda and so on. So it just shows the mentality of these people, and it's even more disturbing when, like, an African American says it, or a Jew says it, or a Muslim, anyone who has experienced or who in the past has experienced injustice, from wherever, and whether from inside the United States or out. I mean, even Obama. He's not African American in the sense that if I'm not mistaken, that his father was not from the United States, so he wasn't a descendant of slaves. But Kenya was also part of the British Empire, and the crimes that were committed in Kenya were horrific.
Right.
So anyone who has this heritage, who has this past, who has this history, you would imagine that they would be more
Empathetic or understanding.
yeah, it's more disturbing to see such people
Right.
To take such a position.
Right. Yes, and of course, Obama growing up in the United States, despite not being despite the fact that his father was from Africa, he was, treated in the United States as a black man, right? Like that's how he.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah. So yes,
Yeah.
and of course, this is something I talk about a lot. And sorry if I sound like a broken record, but in line with what you were saying, it is so disturbing seeing when Jews take away from the Holocaust, never again for anyone, meaning never again for Jews. And in fact, in the name of that slogan, we're going to kill people who had literally nothing to do with the Holocaust. And that's why it's so moving to see the people who understand this, whether they are Black Americans or Jews, connecting what happened to them to this in a way that says, no, maybe my experience, the experience of my ancestors should teach us that we don't want this to happen to other people. And so, yeah, I agree that Van Jones's response is sickening, but it's also so funny because he can't say anything in defense of Israel in this context. It totally undermines the alleged concern with a nuclear weapon. The fact that Israel has one. So all he can say is why, or why does that matter, and dismisses it as a rumor, when again, it's totally documented. And anyone who knows anything about this region knows that Israel does have a nuclear weapon. And
it considers others to be subhuman, Amalek, it's genocidal. So,
what a dangerous combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about something that you said on the great Danny Haifang show. Hi, Danny. Welcome back. Is he still in China or is he back? I'm not sure, but
no, he's back. And I was on his show.
Yeah.
I think it was yesterday. Wasn't
you were. Yeah.
And then he said it was his birthday. Now, either that was a way for him to get extra likes. I don't know. Or it was his birthday. But maybe you can just say it's your birthday and then, you
oh, yeah, it's my birthday. It will be my birthday, July. And actually, this is an easy way. No one will ever forget it. 7/11 is my birthday. But
okay.
I do, right? It's easy to remember. But I do want to wish Danny.
But, since I'm sanctioned, I can't send you anything. But,
right.
But anyway, happy birthday from,
in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to Danny and thanks for everything that he does. You said two things that stood out to me. Well, you said a lot that stood out to me. And the analysis of the economics was fascinating, but you said that Trump is leading us towards global catastrophe. And you also warned people to brace for maximum impact. So can you expand on both of those ideas?
I don't know how we can brace for maximum impact because and I hope we don't get there, but during the 39-day war, obviously the Strait of Hormuz was not many ships were getting through because most of the ships had to do with those 5 Arab dictatorships that were a part of the war. And it's obvious that Iran is not going to allow, for example, the Emirates or Qatar to export oil or gas when their airspace and their bases are being used by the Americans to bomb Iran. But after the 39 days of fighting ended and the aggression stopped, we had a ceasefire deal, as we were discussing earlier. And it was Netanyahu was supposed to end the killing in Gaza and Lebanon because the ceasefire was for the entire region, not just Lebanon. It included the entire region, which meant Gaza too. Trump could have stopped that, and he didn't. So that set back the deal for a good 10, 11 days. And so for 10, 11 more days, those ships that it was agreed upon could leave the Strait of Hormuz, ships linked to those 5 countries, didn't leave. And so it just exacerbated the crisis. And then when Netanyahu was forced to accept the ceasefire, even though since then he's restarted and he's slaughtering people everywhere, that aside, well, Trump imposed a siege on Iranian ports. And when Iran said, okay, now we're going to open up the strait for these ships, Trump said, but I'm keeping my siege in place. And so Iran says, well, if you're going to do that, then we're not going to let those ships leave. So Trump and Netanyahu have effectively kept the Strait of Hormuz closed for most shipping for 2.5 months now. And right now, and I'm not an economist, but I've listened to some people who know what they're talking about, and you've invited such people on your show too, like Professor Wolf and others, decent people who look at society, how the vulnerable will be impacted, and how they're impacted in the world that we live in today by policies and by war. And what I understand is that they're saying that in the more vulnerable countries, it's already having a major impact. In countries like the United States, it's sort of like a fever, that people see higher gasoline prices or higher prices for food, and they think that's it. But it's the fever is only the symptom, and something much bigger is happening. And so supply chains are being broken, and soon you'll have supply lines that are broken, and factories, because all of those petrochemicals that are being produced in the Persian Gulf region, a lot of them have been destroyed, the plants. A lot of them, again, because of Trump's siege, they can't get out. And so it's not just oil, and it's not just natural gas or LNG. It's not even just helium or fertilizer, but it's all sorts of products that come out of the petrochemical plants. And so all the different industries are going to be badly affected. So factories will be shut down, industries will be closed. So if this continues, every day that this continues, it's going to get much worse. And so basically, for the sake of Zionism, Trump and Netanyahu are wrecking the global economy. I don't know how we can brace for the impact of what's happening. In Iran, we have our own problems, of course. They bombed some of key industrial centers. They bombed pharmaceutical factories. They've bombed the steel industry. They bombed petrochemical plants, and so on. Our gas installations and schools, hospitals, all sorts of things. And of course, now we have the siege, which does have an impact on life even more. So we have our own problems, but the problems that are going to hit the world are going to be probably much worse, because the world has not lived through sanctions or siege as Iran has. Iran is used to this. The economy is structured in a way to minimize the problems, even though the problems are not small. And also people are not actually seeing what's happening. They're only seeing the it's like visible hike in prices, but what lies behind that is going to be much more devastating. And it's as if the whole world is sleepwalking towards disaster. I mean, people do know what's happening. I'm sure people around Trump and Netanyahu know what's happening, but their priority is not the United States or India or Argentina or Uganda or anywhere else. It's just the Israeli regime.
Right. Yes, sleepwalking towards disaster is a great way to put it. Wanted to ask you some super chat questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
So this comments or questions. So Empire We Are writes, in the 90s, I worked for Boeing St. Louis F-15 Avionics. Boeing built 25 F-15s for Israel. The F-151I all were built to carry and deploy American B-61 series nuclear gravity bombs. That's it. Fascinating tidbit of information. Question.
Iran's sin, Kate, it's just it's about its independence, which and that's what the revolution was about. But it's because of its support for the Palestinian cause, the Cuban people, the Venezuela, South Africa under apartheid. But of course, the most sensitive issue in the West is Palestine, and so Iran's sin and the axis of resistance. Their sin is their opposition to genocide and support for the Palestinian people and opposition to ethno-supremacism. I don't know if you know, but when I was on Piers Morgan's show, not the other day, but a couple of weeks ago, I asked him, do you think a regime that is founded upon ethno-supremacism is legitimate or illegitimate? And he wouldn't answer the question. I asked him 3 times, right, and he wouldn't answer the question, and which I think is very revealing. And I think it also shows the power of Zionism and the lobby and so on, that he says it's his show is uncensored, Piers Morgan Uncensored, but he obviously is incapable. And this time I alluded to that. I said, you failed to answer the question. He didn't say anything. He didn't say, no, I did, or anything like that. He just he ignored the comment I made 2-3 days ago when I was last on this show. Right. This is the problem. And that's why Iran has been demonized for 47 years. That's why we're always having armed insurrections funded by Western intelligence agencies. We've had 3 wars imposed on us during the last 47 years. Maximum pressure sanctions that target ordinary people. It's all about Palestine.
Right. Yes. And of course, it's so fascinating to watch the ways that different governments act, and the morality, the fact that Iran wants and has demanded that Lebanon be included, right, in the ceasefire. And that's you brought up Cuba. It reminds me of after the Bay of Pigs, the Cubans released one of their demands for releasing certain people, prisoners, who had participated in the Bay of Pigs, which was obviously a failed invasion, was baby formula.
Right.
It's like that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really telling to see the way that other governments, and of course, like Iran, Cuba is vilified as a terrorist nation. Iran is vilified as a terrorist nation when the terrorism that has been implemented in relation to those countries has been funded by people in the United States, in the case of Cuba, and protected by the United States. And the terrorism has been applied to the people of Cuba, not the other way around. And so you do see a real difference in morality coming from different governments. And the biggest irony is that these are the governments that are framed as the most evil by Western media.
That's right.
Someone else wrote, so Elliot ZP, question for Professor Marandi. Why does Iranian rhetoric, I don't know what Iranian rhetoric means, but why does Iranian rhetoric at times not separate U.S. soldiers from the decision makers? Their lives have been put on the line against their will for another country. We love them.
I think that you were saying this earlier on, maybe before the show, I don't remember. You were saying that you went to Cuba and the Cubans made that distinction. The same is true in Iran. I mean, I guess it's people assume in Iran, or I myself may have done a tweet that has been misinterpreted. For example, I sometimes write the collective West is your enemy to my readers. And of course, once I think, what's this? The person from the Young Turks,
Cenk Uygur, or
yes, Cenk Uygur. He wrote underneath, no, you should make a distinction. And then I answered to, I'm not talking about ordinary people in the West. I'm just talking about the elites. It's a term that's used, nowadays. Collective West. It means like the elites, the regimes, and those. So sometimes people like myself may. Tweets are short, and you tend to be brief, and maybe I should be more careful, but that's not the intention. I mean, the intention is not to equate ordinary Americans with the elites. Right.
The collective West is about it being the United States, Europe.
Those who are in power. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Someone else writes. Texas Ryan writes, thanks, Professor, for your time. Co-sign that. Some writes, keep up the great work, Katie. Love the show. Bastion of Truth. Always a pleasure to see and hear from Professor Marandi. Great insights and words of wisdom. And Sam Max also says, could we have a free Palestine and Cuba as key points on the list of ceasefire demands from Iran to the West?
Well, in the ceasefire, it says the entire region. The reason why Lebanon is stated specifically was because of the heavy fighting there. Otherwise, Gaza is included.
Right.
Cuba, I don't know, but hopefully with the collapse of Trump's regime, Cuba will be spared. I think that this war with Iran, although it's very painful for Iranians, but Iranians do believe that they're fighting not just on behalf of themselves and even the region, but this is a global struggle. Right. People say that. I mean, you go on the streets and you go to the gatherings at night, and you can feel that's the mood among ordinary people, which is very praiseworthy. But hopefully, we all have a responsibility to remind everyone all the time about Cuba, about Nicaragua, about Gaza, about Lebanon, about all the injustices that are being imposed.
Right. Well, Dr. Marandi, thank you so much as always, and please come back soon because we love hearing from you. And I still have to go get those. I have to reach out to those guests that you recommended. Hillary.
Yes, they wrote the Going to Tehran.
Yes. Yeah.
Hillary and Clinton, Hillary Man Levin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. It's a good book. Well, I again, congratulations on your birthday. So
ahead of time. Yeah.